Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. In this video, I'm going to share with you the exact system I use whenever I start learning a new language. It's a very simple system that takes you from complete beginner to having a very strong and solid foundation in the language you're learning without all the confusion and wondering what to do next. So today I'm going to share with you the exact steps I follow to learn any language. Now, I'm not saying that this is the only correct way to learn a language. There are many different methods that you can use, but this is just something that has consistently worked for me over the last 10 years that I've been learning languages and across multiple different languages from different language families. And of course, feel free to adapt it depending on your goals, your schedule, and the language you're learning. But if I had to start from zero today, this is the exact system I would follow. So don't forget to like this video and subscribe. And now let's get started. Whenever I start learning a new language, there are two main things that I always do. And I'm a huge believer that you only really need one resource to get you started learning a new language. Because I feel like if you have a textbook, a structured course, and then you also have like online classes and multiple YouTube channels, multiple apps, that is just too confusing. It's too much. You end up not knowing what to use first, what to leave for later. So what I always recommend is choosing just one thing that you are going to stick with for the first, I don't want to give an exact timeline because it's different for every single person. It depends on how much time you can spend learning a language. I always recommend either a textbook or a structured course. It can be an online course or whatever, just like something that is structured so that you know what to do next. Because I feel like when you're learning a new language, the main thing that is difficult is obviously like you know nothing about that language, right? And you don't know what's important, what to learn first, what to leave for later. And if you have a structured resource like a textbook or a course, that thing is just decided for you. You just open up your textbook and you don't have to like wonder, okay, should I learn this first or should I learn this first? It saves you a lot of time and a lot of mental energy that you can spend on learning instead. Okay, but what resource should you choose? There is no one correct answer to that question. I would say this might be an unpopular opinion, but I would say that just choose something that looks good to you, that looks appealing to you, that you know, that will make you want to study that language. And make sure that it has good reviews. You can look it up online. You can watch YouTube videos of people like recommending different things for different languages. I really like resources that are dialogue based because I feel like they focus on everyday things and expressions that you can use in everyday conversations. I mainly learn languages for travel and because I just want to talk to people. So I'm not really like too worried about learning like very formal words and stuff like that because I just don't need them. But choose something that suits your needs and something that looks appealing to you. And at the end of the day, at the beginner level, they all kind of focus on the same thing. It's impossible to reinvent something when it comes to learning a language. I mean, you can use different methods, but like the content itself, the like grammar structures and like the words that you're gonna learn, it's just impossible to reinvent that. You're gonna learn the same thing no matter which resource you choose. One thing though, one thing that is not negotiable is audio. You need audio because you need to get used to the pronunciation, the rhythm of the language from day one. As I said, I really like textbooks that are dialogue based. So here we have the dialogue in Russian and then have the same dialogue in French because French is a language that I am fluent in. So the first thing I always do before even like listening to something, and no matter which textbook you choose or which like course you choose, you will most likely have some sort of a dialogue or a text that you're going to start with, right? Each lesson is going to start with like a text or a dialogue. So before I even listen to the dialogue for the first time, I read it and I try to understand what it is about because I feel like it makes listening a lot easier. And then I listen to the audio a few times. At first, I don't really worry about understanding everything. If the pronunciation is a bit difficult, if maybe the speaker is speaking a bit too fast for me, I just listen a few times and let my brain get used to it. And usually by the time I listen to the dialogue for the second second or third time, I have no trouble understanding what it is about. Now, the third step is going to be shadowing. And this is why I said that audio is not negotiable for me, because you are going to do some shadowing exercises with the audio that comes with your textbook or with your course. If you've never heard about shadowing, it's one of the best language learning techniques, and it's very, very simple. It's basically repeating after the speaker. So after each sentence, I pause and I try to repeat it, and I try to match the rhythm, the pronunciation, the intonation of the speaker. It really, really helps if you want to work on your accent. But at the beginning, the goal is not sounding perfect. The goal is simply to get your mouth used to producing different sounds. A lot of people say that you should speak from day one, and I think that you should try to speak from day one, but I think producing your own sentences and expecting people to start doing that from day one is very unrealistic. You simply don't know enough yet to form your own sentences. So that's why I really, really love shadowing, because I feel like it bridges that gap perfectly, because you are speaking, your mouth is getting used to producing new sounds, but at the same time, you don't have to worry about just forming your own sentences, thinking about the conjugations, if you use this word correctly or not. You don't have to even think about that. You are literally repeating after someone else. Essentially, you just get the best of both worlds, and you can practice speaking without any pressure. Another thing I do for the exact same reason is I always try to read the dialogue out loud. So after I finished listening to it, after I finished my shadowing exercises, I always try to read the dialogue out loud at least once. I usually do like twice or three times, because one of the hardest things about learning a new language is actually speaking. And one of the hardest parts about speaking isn't always knowing what to say, it's just getting used to speaking that language. Basically, you are literally just reading things out loud, and your mouth and your brain are getting used to the fact that you are speaking a new language, and it helps massively at the intermediate level and at the advanced level, because it just slowly, gradually gets you used to speaking a new language. And then eventually in the future, when you will have the opportunity to use your new language in real life, it will feel a lot less stressful. So trust me, doing that at the very beginning is worth it. It's one of the best things you can do when learning a new language. So as you can see, I try to use my resources very actively. And then obviously I do the exercises that come with the lesson. They are there for a reason. If they're too repetitive, I might skip a few, because I'm not a huge fan of those like fill in the gap types of exercises. But other than that, I just do them because they come for a reason. One last thing in this like part of the video is, don't try to perfect one lesson. Even if you don't understand something perfectly, I would say move on, learn something new, and eventually with enough exposure to the language, it will just click. So don't worry too much about being perfect. Okay, so that was the first thing you're gonna do when starting a new language, but then you're also going to combine it with the second thing. And that second thing is you are going to expose yourself to the language you're learning as much as possible through YouTube, movies, TV shows, music, podcasts, whatever that might be. You're going to want to get as much input as possible. And I would recommend doing that from day one, even if you understand almost nothing. I know it sounds a bit counterintuitive, because a lot of people think that they need to wait until they know more, they have more vocab, they know more grammar, but I actually think it's the other way around. That's exactly how I learned English, French, and Spanish, through getting lots and lots of input. I didn't understand much at the beginning either, but that constant exposure made a huge difference over time. Da escuridão. Da escuridão. Da escuridão. So as you can see, now I'm doing the same with Portuguese. I'm still very much a beginner, so I definitely don't understand everything yet, and I need to look up a lot of words like this one, darkness, or how to say I was afraid in Portuguese, and I also still need subtitles. But that is totally fine. At this stage, you just want to give your brain as much exposure to the language as possible. Every minute you spend listening helps you get used to the rhythm, the pronunciation, the different sounds, and then something very interesting starts to happen. At first, everything just sounds like a random noise, right? But then over time, you suddenly start recognizing words you've seen before. Then you start recognizing expressions, and then eventually you just start understanding whole sentences without even knowing how you got there. I don't know the science behind it. It still amazes me to this day how our brains work, that they can just start recognizing new words, expressions, and understanding whole sentences. I have no idea how that works. But it's amazing. It works like magic, and I will never ever ever stop recommending this method. And if you're wondering what I'm actually using here, it's LingoPie. What I really like about it is that it takes something that I already recommend and that I already love and makes it much more learner friendly. As you just saw, instead of pausing every 30 seconds to Google a word, I can just click on it and instantly see its meaning, pronunciation, and grammar. It also automatically saves those words so you can review them later. What's also really cool is that they offer dual subtitles. So here I have subtitles in Brazilian Portuguese, which is the language I'm learning, and also in English, which is a language that I am fluent in. In my opinion, this is a game changer, especially at the beginner level. They have a library of over 3,000 shows across 15 different languages. Here are the languages that they currently offer. And if that's not enough, I can also connect my Netflix account and add those interactive subtitles to shows I already wanted to watch anyway. This is a feature that I've been using a lot recently. I really like it because it doesn't even feel like studying anymore. I can just pick a movie in the evening and then learn a few new words with little to no extra effort. So if you're serious about learning a new language and you want to get as much input as possible without it feeling like you're studying all the time, I genuinely think it's worth checking out. You can get a 7-day free trial plus 55% off through the link in my description, and thank you LingoPie for sponsoring today's video. I genuinely think you will be amazed by the results, and especially if your goal is to learn those words that people use all the time in everyday conversations, you will love this method. And if you combine the two, a structured course and as much input as possible, I can guarantee you that you will start learning super fast. Okay, now let's talk about learning vocab, because a lot of people ask me how I learn vocab, and to be honest, I don't really do that. Actually, most of the vocab that I acquire is either through the structured course or the textbook that I follow, or through input. Again, if you just hear a word over and over again, you are bound to remember it eventually. But one tip that I can give you is don't be afraid to skip some words, especially at the beginning. I feel like a lot of textbooks, even my favorite ones, they tend to focus on vocab that is not very useful, at least in my opinion. 10 different like types of fruit, or like 15 different like types of clothing. And while I'm not saying that you will never ever use those words, they're not very common in everyday speech, especially at the beginning, because let's be honest, in today's like day and age, you don't really go to the store and ask people to hand you things, or like you don't go to a clothing store and tell the salesperson what you want. You just kind of choose yourself and you don't really talk to people, right? So instead, I really like to focus on verbs and adjectives, because every sentence has a verb, right? So if you learn the most common verbs, let's say 20 or 50 or 100, you will be able to say so much more, versus when you learn like 20 different types of fruit, 20 different like types of vegetables, and then clothing and like colors and stuff like that, right? You know what I'm saying, right? Just focus on words that you will actually use, and then also don't learn words in isolation, learn whole sentences. So for example, if you learn the word to run, right? The verb to run, that's fine. But what's even better is learning how to say, I like to run, because then when someone asks you, oh, what are your hobbies? You don't have to think about like, okay, how do I say that I really enjoy running? You can just say, I like to run. Or for example, you learn the word hungry, okay? That's a very useful word. But what's even more useful is learning how to say, I'm hungry, because then you can express yourself a lot more easily. Same with the word coffee. Like you go to a coffee shop and you know how to say coffee, but when the person asks you, oh, what do you want? Then you can say, can I have a cup of coffee? It just makes life so much easier. Now let's talk about grammar. When it comes to grammar, I don't really obsess over it. Again, it's kind of the same as with vocab. I mostly learn it through my structured course, my like main resource, and then through input. I'd say at the beginner stage, learn the present tense well, because if you learn the present tense, you'll be able to say, I'd say like, this is not like a scientific number or anything, but I'd say like 75% of everything that you'll ever need to say in that language, because we use the present tense all the time. Learn how basic sentence structure works, how to conjugate verbs, and then just learn grammar gradually as your course or as your textbook introduces it. Now, when, for example, maybe in one of the first like lessons or dialogues, you see a sentence that is in the past tense, for example, I was born in July, right? Don't spend too much time thinking about it, why this verb was conjugated this way. Learn it when your course introduces it. And for now, just know that if you want to say that you were born in July, this is how you say it. This has saved me a lot of time, lots of energy. And I feel like in general, this is just what works for me, okay? If you really like to know why things are the way that they are and you really are into grammar, then by all means, but I'm just not one of those people. And I just mostly prefer to be like, okay, this is how you say this. I don't need to know why. I just need to know that this is how you say it. And that's it. And in general, I'd say don't spend too much time doing those fill in the gap exercises or stuff like that. They're good, but in my opinion, exposure is better. And I always learn a lot more through that versus just like doing those exercises, because at least to me, they're a bit boring. And when learning becomes boring, it becomes a lot more difficult to focus. And yeah, just it's just not fun, and I feel like when you're having fun you're learning so much faster. So yeah, both for grammar and vocab, I would recommend to learn them mostly through input and then obviously through your main resource. Okay, another thing that I really want to talk about is consistency and making some sort of a study plan. I have a video on my channel where I made my summer study plan, so you can check it out if you are interested. But my biggest tip that I can give you is to set realistic goals. I know that at the beginning it can be very tempting to be like, okay, I'm gonna study every day for like 3 hours a day. And that is a very good goal. And if you actually manage to pull that off, props to you. You'll probably get amazing results in no time. But I feel like for most people, that's just unrealistic, especially studying every single day for that amount of time. It's a long time. 3 hours is a very long time to stay focused. So instead, I like to set manageable, realistic goals. And for me, that is something between 15 to 20 minutes per day, like 5 to 6 times a week. At the beginning, the lessons that you're going to be doing are going to be very short. It's mostly going to be, hi, how are you? What's your name? Where are you from? What do you like to do in your free time? Stuff that's very basic. It's not going to take you much time to complete a lesson. Yeah, I feel like 20 minutes is enough at the very beginning. Now, this is just a minimum. If you want to do more, you are very much welcome to do more. But I feel like setting a minimum that is very manageable is what's going to help you stay consistent. And why is consistency so important? Because especially at the very beginning, you don't want huge gaps between your study sessions. If you study every single day for 15 or 20 minutes, you give your brain just enough time to forget a little bit, but not to the point where you cannot remember it anymore. It's just going to take some effort to remember it again. And then when you remember it again, it just helps solidify what you have already learned. Whereas when you leave a bigger gap, let's say 2, 3, 4 days, your brain is just going to completely forget what you learned, and then you will have to relearn the same thing, and you'll spend so much time relearning the same thing over and over again. And that time is much better spent learning new things, obviously, because we all want to make progress, right? So you don't want huge gaps between your study sessions, but at the same time, I feel like studying every single day of the week is still a bit unrealistic because life can get busy. And I like to give myself a little bit of flexibility. So I usually aim to study Monday through Saturday for at least 20 minutes per day. As I said, if I want to do more, I can do more, there is no problem, but that's just my minimum. That helps me stay consistent. And then let's say that one day of the week I'm really busy and I have literally no time to study. That's fine. I can reschedule that study session and study on Sunday, and I still keep my streak. And lastly, let's talk about motivation and goals and why you even want to learn that language, because that is super important, knowing why you want to learn that language. Because motivation is amazing, but let's be honest, you are going to have good days and bad days, and on some days learning a language will be the last thing you want to do. And that is why you need a really strong reason for wanting to learn that language. Let's say, like, for example, for me, I really like to travel. That's why I started learning Brazilian Portuguese, because I'm going to Brazil in a few months. So even on days when I don't want to study, I'm like, okay, I set this minimum of 20 minutes. That's not a very long time. And then I also remember why I'm learning that language, because I'm going to Brazil, because I want to have conversations with people while I'm there, because I want to do really, really cool things that will only be possible if I learn to speak Brazilian Portuguese. I created this very, very vivid mental image of what that looks like for me. So I just remember that. And when I tell you that this instantly makes me like eager to learn something and just excited for the future, it's crazy. But for you, that reason might be completely different. Maybe you're learning for school, for work. Maybe some of your family members don't speak the same language as you. Maybe you want to move to a new country. Whatever that is, just make sure that that reason makes it impossible for you to quit learning that language. It also really helps to determine what you want to focus on when you're learning a new language. For me, as I said, I'm learning mostly for travel, so I don't really care about like perfect grammar and stuff like that. But if you're learning for school, then that's obviously going to be more important for you. Or if you're learning for work, or if you need to pass a very important like exam, you need a certificate, you are going to focus on grammar a lot more than me, because you're going to need it and I don't really need it. Or maybe you want to learn a language that uses a different script. So ask yourself, like, do I need to know how to read that script? In most cases, the answer is going to be yes. I always recommend learning a new script, a new alphabet anyway. But in some like extreme cases, when you know that you're never ever going to use it, you're never going to read in that language, you're never going to have to write in that language, you might be like, okay, you know what? I actually do not need it. I don't need to spend time doing this. I can just focus on speaking and listening, for example. So make sure you have a strong reason for wanting to learn that language that is going to make it impossible for you to quit. And one last thing that I want to say is don't overcomplicate it. I feel like sometimes the internet and many like people, teachers, they make language learning seem so complicated when in reality it's really not. You just need one good resource, constant exposure, lots of practice, and you will make progress in no time. All right, so that's it for today's video. I really hope you enjoyed it. This is the exact system, this is the exact roadmap I use whenever I start learning a new language. I'm using it at the moment because I started learning Brazilian Portuguese. So I really hope that you found it helpful, that you will give it a try. Again, if you feel like you need to adjust it a little bit because you have different goals than me, or your schedule is a bit different, or depending on the language you're learning, you are very welcome to do that. Language learning is not one size fits all, but this is just something that has worked for me very, very well for years now. So I thought I would share it with you. Don't forget to like this video and subscribe, and I'll see you in my next one. Bye.